Yes, but first you must understand what is America, according to the American conservative, or more correctly, who is America? So first of all, we have to define America, and that's pretty tough because we have to define what definitions are to begin with. And in my perspective, is that in any group of people, whatever word used to discuss a concept is most universally understood is the appropriate definition. So a definition of a word can change depending on who you're talking to, the context in which you're talking to, the size of the group, what the group is composed of, all of those sort of things, okay? And then truths, or especially around these concepts, if you test it and you get repeatable results, even if you change your testing method, then that's where you get truths from, and from nowhere else. So what America is to the people in power is what determines what the war economy is, okay? To me, in my interpretation of the world, America, first of all, there is no consistent definition in the country to define America, all right? From my perspective, and probably shared by the vast majority of people on the left, it's all the people that live in the borders, contribute to American prosperity and success, do their best to succeed. But if they fail, they're still Americans, they're still our family, right? Even the people from the other side of the aisle, the ones that didn't engage in insurrection, you know, as much as we don't like what they try to do for the country, if they still try to benefit the country, they're Americans, all right? But you know, your opinion of the nation, depending on what group you're in, I think can thoroughly change. The international concept of America, I don't think anyone's going to like this. I think we are seen as a superpower that has been in civil war forever. I don't think, me personally, and again, most of this is my opinion right here, is that the U.S. government civil war, the U.S. Civil War from the 1800s never ended. We're still fighting those battles today. And very important to know, in any civil war in the world, the combatants do seek foreign aid, all right? And the United States was no different during the official U.S. Civil War. It wasn't different during the Revolution, which some historians consider a civil war. It's no different now. But despite the lack of clarity, there are a couple consistencies when you test America as a population. We have our regular exchanges of power due to our Civil War. We do consistently unify to use our military to accomplish national goals. And there is a large contingent among us that happily hurts our national security in the sake of hurting another group of people. And why does this happen? Because the American right wing has a different concept of America. They have an entirely different definition that does not line up with yours. And you can say, no, it's not true, I don't believe this, but it doesn't matter, because not only do these people act and believe this way, but they have thorough control of the United States government, its propaganda messaging, and many of the state and local governments as well. So this definition will become America, at least for the next 4 years. American conservatives do see the borders as ideological, all right? I use the example of Chicago as one area, but you know, they always name liberal bastions as like places that they would nuke, for example, if they had the power to, or you know, people that they would eliminate or remove from society. All right, your membership is conditional not to what you provide for the nation itself, the way we understand it, not that you live here, not that you work here, but the demographics about you. We would typically say white, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant are like the most American for these people, but important to note, just like every other authoritarian ideology, your membership gets more restrictive over time as they eliminate the outgroups. Then they start looking inward for enemies, because authoritarianism requires an enemy. America is a one-party state. It is the Republican state right now. More correctly, the American conservative oligarchy. But the key point to this distinction here is the Democratic Party and American leftists and trans people and immigrants and every single outgroup that they've identified already is considered an all-powerful, hostile foreign insurgency. And they quite literally just see themselves as having defeated it. That being said, war is messy, and so is the cleanup from the war, okay? The American sovereignty, right-wing American sovereignty, is currently threatened. The hostile combatants, they consider that us, are still among the U.S. population. So accordingly, the conservative concept of war is already underway. All right, it's against the enemies of America, America being defined differently. All right, it's on two fronts. We've got the international war, which are nations that are allied with the hostile insurgency. Okay, that's like NATO. Okay, or domestic. All right, these are operations to, I'll say, liberate the nation, because again, the borders are ideological, not territorial. So in order to actually unlock territorial borders, they have to remove people. They have to specifically remove people because people are national territory. So now we get to a war economy. This is what historically happens no matter the nation, all right? In the anticipation of war, and this is inspired by the U.S. lead up to World War II, peacetime drafts can happen, start bolstering numbers just in case we get attacked or want to join and attack somebody, right? And then we have a lot of non-military influences. So for economic warfare, we waged that against Japan prior to Japan attacking us in Pearl Harbor, all right? Propaganda campaigns, we need people ready and willing to fight when the time comes, so you have to prepare their minds. We see that with a lot of cartoons during World War II and posters. For clandestine operations, for sure, we get ourselves involved in other nations' business, and then we also prevent or fight back against their influence in our soil. Right? And military exchange programs, famously, United States in World War I and World War II sent pilots to other military units for getting our guys more experience and plussing up their numbers. All right, when a nation is at war, they have drafts to keep their military numbers up. Again, we're seeing this with Ukraine and Russia right now. All right, war funding typically via bonds. That's emptying, gold reserves. That's selling products to the population. Okay, rationing. I think that's pretty straightforward. Domestic security operations. We have, FBI that works against clandestine operations, but we also have. Our own government making sure all of this happens. All right. This is also where we saw the roundup of Japanese people during World War II. Okay. Forced labor. A lot of nations resort to that with prisoners of war, political prisoners, or just making their population work. Maybe likely still paying them, right, but forcing them to convert what they do in real life. And now, finally, to the point. This is how American conservatives are engaging in the wartime economy. I would argue it's already underway because, well, one, the Civil War never stopped, but two, that they're preparing. They're in anticipation of war against the enemies. We've already established the enemies of conservative America as ideological. Okay, so peacetime draft. We're seeing conditions to force military enlistment. Famously, Oklahoma has their graduation requirement: either get into university, join the military, or one other thing I forget. All right, non-military influences. We got economic warfare. They're waging that with the tax plan right now, that they're trying to, again, take all of that money and bring it up to the levers, the oligarchs. Okay, discriminatory practices. That's the removal of things like affirmative action and removing social mobility. Okay, our propaganda campaigns really insidious. Biden administration was trying to implement controls on AI, but guess what? All the champions of AI are now friends with the president, right? So there's social media, heavy social media influence, use of AI, use of foreign campaigns, use of bots, okay? For education, if you don't know what they're doing to our education right now, explaining it here is not going to change anything, right? For events, the Great American World Fair is something that Trump promised to make happen. A year of celebration. Cool. That's going to be something you can't avoid in your life, and your kids are going to want to go, and you're going to have to explain why they can't or shouldn't, or you have to deprogram when they come back. That's going to cause tension between you and your family, potentially your spouse who doesn't understand what the hell is going on. Okay, and they're going to use those as propaganda events. All right, for clandestine operation, we've seen a lot of astroturfing. All right, people pretending they're a different party, different person, and then once they gain some power, turning things around. Okay, and false flag may or may not be the case with some of the recent, Okay, military exchange programs. We have this by way of National Guard being deployed to other states to further conservative goals. One of those being, border security operations. One's at war, and again, a lot of this stuff can blend together. All right, Oklahoma has their graduation requirement, as from the previous example, but policing. So The conservative military force in the United States in waging its civil war has been the police. It's been its primary arm of violence against U.S. citizens. The secondary arm of violence being the justice system, basically giving the policing and vigilantes a pass. This is also where we're going to see people like from the previous video, militia types being recruited to support things like roundups and going door to door. Our war funding, again, tax plan, but we also have algorithmic pricing and salaries, basically extracting as much wealth from people as we can possibly tolerate while paying us as little as we can possibly tolerate. Monetization of literally everything, and the rental economy, the gig economy, how you own nothing. All right. Cool. Getting into rations, we have manufactured scarcity. We do this in the digital age with data caps. We don't need data caps anymore. We've got plenty of that capability. But guess what? When we deregulate things like net neutrality, data caps are going to come back. And like I discussed prior, all of this supports wealth transfer to, guess what, the people in power, right? Domestic security operations, leadership purges. We're going to see this in government with the removal of a bunch of federal employees, and we're going to see attempts to install people into the military. I can tell you how that works. I've had it in a previous video. I can talk about it again if you don't believe this is possible, all right? Our weakening of foreign relations also weakens our passport, so it keeps people inside the United States. You think, oh, they want to purge people. They don't want to purge people. They want them here. Okay, for forced labor, all right? So they're going to enact labor drafts via mass incarceration. This already happens in a bunch of states where fast food workers, roadside workers, they're prisoners that are compelled to work, and when they leave prison, they're no longer eligible to work in the places they were employed at as prison laborers. And of course, the big concept tying everything together is that the leaders of your government demand the sacrifice of individual citizens in order to accomplish greater political goals. And louder for those of you in back, no, taxes are not a sacrifice. You are required to be a part of this club. You can't just go stateless and move somewhere else. That is unattainable for most people in this world, okay? So the next best thing, a government, since it owns you, it's required to take care of you, ergo taxes, okay? There are some taxes that do get out of hand, but this is not what I'm talking about when I say sacrifice. It's stuff like this where your day-to-day, your actions as an individual are always consumed by your adherence to the war economy. I know this video was very long-winded. I really hope it helps. Please share if it did, and I'll be happy to answer questions going forward.